Well, hello and welcome to another Faith, Philosophy and Life. Me, Mr. Shelton. It's great to see you again. I do hope you are doing well. Today we are continuing our introduction to RE, or Religious Education, Religious Studies. And today we're going to think about what a church community actually is. Now, behind me are some images of community. These are local to where I live. So we've got Christchurch Community Centre, we've got a school community, a football team, and we've got a housing estate. All of these are examples of all of these are examples of communities. And I wonder, if I was to ask you to describe what a community is, how you would work with that and what you would think about that as well. Let me show you some more pictures. Okay, these are also different types of communities. So we've got the UK or Great Britain, we've got a family community, we've got a town or a city, and then we've obviously got a little picture of Manchester as well. Then we go one stage further and we think about churches, and we think, what is a church used for? Is it just used for worship, or is it used for community as well? I'm going to leave that thought with you while you go and grab yourself a pen and a paper, because here's our cheesy intro music. Fantastic. Well, I'm sure by now you've probably thought a little bit about the fact that churches are used by many groups, certainly when they should be open. We've got uniform groups that meet, there's elderly people groups, there's things like Weight Watchers, Alcoholics Anonymous. Lots and lots of groups use churches. They're not just there for worship, however, that is clearly the main function of a church, and therefore the Christian community meet there as well. So our title today for you to write down is, what is the church? What is the church? And we're going to look at what is meant by the word community. Okay, we're going to explore what's understood by the word community. It's going to be a good outcome if we can explain what the word community means. It's going to be great if you can explain how community makes people different. And it can be even better if you give examples of how to improve your local community as well. So that's where we're going. During today's session, as usual, do pause me and make notes, and also please make sure that you get any titles or anything written down, and everything else as we go. So as usual, you will need to send all your work to your teachers, please. So during today's session, we're going to look at what community is, we're going to look at a worksheet, we're going to look at belonging, and then we're going to hopefully create a leaflet as well. First off, I would like you to write these two Greek words down. Okay, so just write these two Greek words down. We've got kuriakon and ecclesia. Now, kuriakon, let me explain what they mean. They're both Greek words, and they both actually are direct translations for the word church. Now, we in English would, for example, use the word love, but interpret that love very differently. I might say, I love my cat, I love chocolate, and I love my children. And I'm sure you would already interpret those three statements of me saying love in a very different way. At least hopefully you would. I wouldn't really intend to eat my cat or my children, but I would eat chocolate. In the same way, I would stroke my cat, but I wouldn't stroke my children, and I certainly wouldn't stroke chocolate. I'm sure you get the idea. Now, the word church splits into these two, and again, I'd like to make sure that you've got those written down. So we've got kuriakon, which is the house of the Lord, and we've got ecclesia, which is the people of God. Now, both of those are terms that mean the word church, and they directly translate as the word church. So we've got the house of the Lord and the people of God, and that tells you a little bit about what church is. It's both a place and a community. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask you to have a look in the Google Drive below in the description, and you'll find a worksheet there about what life was like in the early church. There's a series of questions on that, and I'd like you to answer the questions. You need to read the text very carefully, some biblical text from the book of Acts, and then extract the information. So pause me now where you get the information sheet, the question sheet from the Google Drive, and then come back to me after you've got those answered. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, now you've got that worksheet complete, is just to talk through some of the different aspects of the church community. Now, to do this, I'm going to be asking you to draw a triangle in your book. So again, pause me now, just where you draw a triangle, you're going to need to write inside this triangle, so it's going to need to be fairly large. Okay, so the church community then is broken into these places. So there is one pope of the church. There is one pope of the church. So that goes right at the very top of your pyramid. So you divide your pyramid into 5 sections. Okay, so on this triangle, that's the word I'm looking for, you're going to divide it into 5. At the very top you write the Pope, because there is only one Pope. Here the Pope is in charge of the Catholic Church in the whole world, and he makes decisions about what Catholics follow. And Pope Francis is the current Pope. So you write Pope Francis in that top part, and maybe a little bit of information about him. Okay, in the next section is the cardinals. Now, the cardinals are in charge of the Catholic Church. Underneath the Pope, they're in charge of it from a country perspective. Cardinal Vincent Nichols is in charge of the Catholics in England. Now, what happens with the cardinals is they all get together and they make decisions as part of what is known as the magisterium. Don't get hung up about that, but that's the role of a cardinal. They're basically a bishop which has been promoted to the role of cardinal. Underneath the cardinals then are the bishops. Now the bishops are in charge of dioceses, which is an area to which the churches gather. So it's kind of like a collection of churches within a local area. So Liverpool Diocese, then there's Shrewsbury Diocese on the other side of the water. There's Shrewsbury all the way up to Wirral, which is a huge diocese. Now, these bishops are in charge of confirmation ceremonies and looking after the vicars of the priests, shall I say, of the parishes. There's archdioceses, which is the same as diocese, but the archdiocese has an archbishop. They're just basically terms for slightly more important diocese, and he's called Malcolm McConey. Okay, so that's the bishop of Liverpool, the Archbishop of Liverpool. Underneath the bishops then become priests. Now priests are in charge of the parish. A parish is a local area that England is divided up into, and every road is attached to a local parish. The priest is in charge of saying the Mass and teaching people about the sacraments and baptism, and he looks after the church in which people attend locally. So the priest is the main point of reference of the local community, and then underneath the priest, and again hopefully you're getting all this down, is the laity. Now the laity are people like you and I who are not ordained. We're not priests, we're not bishops, we're definitely not cardinals, or maybe even the Pope. I would imagine the Pope's not watching this. They're the people, the laity are basically the life and blood of the church. They're the ones who run groups, they're the ones who turn up to Sundays during Mass and other services. They're the ones who basically help run the church. The priest is the person who heads it up and coordinates it, that's his role. However, the laity are people who basically are the non-ordained folk. So this triangle now should be complete. Let's just recap our objectives for a moment. We said it'd be good if we could explain what the word community means. We looked at some examples of that towards the start of this clip. We said it'd be great if we could explain how the community makes a difference to people. and hopefully we've started to think about some of the things that churches might do for that, and even better, we give examples of how you could improve your community. So we've done our what is community, we've done our worksheet, and we've been thinking a little bit about how belonging of a church. So we're going to keep thinking about belonging for a little bit longer. What I'd like you to do is to grab a compass, not one that says north, south, east, west, but one that you can draw circles with. And if you'd rather do squares, do squares. And I'd like you to do a number of circles, okay, as I've got behind me there. So you're going to write inside each of them. So again, they need to be big enough to write in. So again, pause me now and then come back to me. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. In the middle circle, the tiniest circle there in the middle, I would like you to write down your closest family members that you're linked with. So it might be mum, dad, brothers or sisters. Do them by name. Write their names down in that middle circle. Okay, in the circle next to that then, coming slightly out, they're going to be your closest friends. So you might have 3 or 4 really close friends that you talk to about absolutely anything. So again, that's what's in that circle. So pause me and then come back to me when you've got your close friends written in. Okay, the next one then is for you to talk about your friends that you maybe more acquaintances, people that you bump into, people that you will talk to about things. You might just not be very close to them. And then in the last circle, I want you to write down people that you might come in contact with, but you don't really know them. You might call them acquaintances. You might not even call them friends. Like, for example, the person who runs the local shop you buy a newspaper from for your family, or your bus driver, or just someone you might pass in the street, a neighbour maybe. So again, just put those in that circle. Okay, so there's your community, and you can see that you've probably got quite a large community around you. This then is coming up to our final task. I'd like you to create a leaflet on what community means and the roles that people have in it. You could talk about the communities that we've thought about today, the community that you live in, your school community, or even a church community. And I just wonder what would make a good leaflet. Well, it's got to have information, it's probably going to have pictures, it might be even quite colourful. So I'm going to leave that as the task. Let me just come back to that in a moment though. A good outcome would be if we could explain what the word community means, and hopefully we've tackled that really well today with lots of examples. We've thought about how community will make a difference to people, and that's what this task is about. How is your circles make a difference to you? How does church community make a difference to people? And give examples of how you can improve your community, and that's really what this task is for. So I'm going to leave it there today. Thanks very much for your time. Take care of yourself, stay safe, wash hands, God bless you, and I'll see you soon.